Hey, what's up, y'all? Wanted to come and make a tutorial for Awaken Hash for the console folks out there. Alright, so I'm gonna start off with the basics and get into movement. So the first thing you want to do is go in here, lock Rupture. Second, we're gonna lock Tail Cutter. And always lock Evasion. Every class you're on, no matter what you play, lock this skill. And lastly, we're gonna lock Paradise Beckons. The reason that I lock the three skills, aside from Evasion, is that sometimes the input will have conflict with another skill I'm trying to cast, and it'll end up getting me killed because of lack of protection or timing. So it's just better if I lock it. Tail Cutter is not unprotected, but it costs a lot of stamina and will interfere every time I'm trying to cast Ridge Reaver. So I like to lock that one. In Awakening, we leave everything unlocked. Now your choices for your skill enhancement, Prophecy Blade is a must. You need this. Mirage Assault is optional. It's not necessary. You could go either one. Same for the third Rabam choice. It's very much a preference, but I'd say either one is far more important than either one of these two. I prefer Sand Tornado for the iframe at the start. Helps me to get in or out of combat much safer. Shadow Slicer has super armor, so if you're fighting someone with big AoEs, you're gonna take that damage even if you're moving. Now, to address this right off the bat, I changed my buttons for my skills so they are not gonna match up to what you have as a stock input. So I'm just going to be calling skills by their name, not by their inputs. Hopefully you'll be able to translate that to whatever your input is. Now, after we've got everything that we want locked, it's important to talk about what we put on the ring menus. I've got 3 skills, well, really 4 that are a must to be on the ring menu. We've got Descent. This is a big damage pre-awaken, can be activated from either stance, and great for getting in close and doing big damage to get into pre-awaken while staying protected. It also has tier 3 skill add-ons, so should you choose to put your skill add-on on there, it is really good for starting off. So that looks like this. Up next we have Owl's Breath. This is one of the Hash's bread and butter skills. We activate this and it's going to put tornadoes out that all converge on the enemy of your choice. Now you see how it leaves me unprotected? You want to dash out of that. Oh, it's converging. So whenever we put these out, you want to be sure to dash out of that as soon as you can to close up that lack of protection. I'll show you again. And that way you aren't stuck. The next one is going to be Prophecy Blade. This is that DP up for yourself and just to remain protected. It's a great buff skill, it does good damage. There's really no wrong time to hit this. It looks like this. This is another skill you cancel out of as soon as you can in order to stay protected because it does end abruptly. And lastly, we have Sand Tornado, which is going to be the pretty long distance protected movement at the start that ends in an unprotected stun. You can use it to engage like a unsuspecting ranged opponent or to disengage when you've got a lot of people on you in a specific location. So this is what that looks like. Good for just making some distance. One thing that I like to have slotted on my ring menu is quicksand. You do not need this slotted, but it is pretty important skill. It's great for grouping things in PvE. It can be activated through input in pre-awakening, but I prefer to have it ring menu just as a way to get into pre-awakening even if my other cooldowns are used. And it's got a slow on it, so say someone's chasing you. You just went in for some catches that didn't catch, so you keep moving and you're trying to get away. If they're chasing you, you turn around and you throw this back out at them, and they're going to be hesitant to run through that. One, because they think it might hurt pretty bad, and depending upon your AP, it can. But two, even if it doesn't hurt, it's got a decent slow on it, which is going to make their attack, their gaps are going to be open for longer. So it'll always play in your advantage if you're retreating to just turn around and hit that quicksand at them. Now, let's go over some movement. Starting off with the dash, anytime you dash, you will end in awakening. You can dash in any direction. It's going to be left trigger. I haven't changed that. You can dash sideways, backwards, forwards. When you walk backwards, you'll get your frontal guard. That's your most basic way of staying protected. Dashing, walk backwards. Now for your actual movement chains, if you are just trying to close distance, there is no wrong way to do this. You can chain them together in whatever order, but you may want to strategize what you use so that you have other certain skills up available for once you're actually engaging. If you dash and you tap the button for Sand Slicer, it will put you into pre-awaken. It'll look like this. Now once you're in Sand Slice, immediately you want to follow it up with a protected skill to try and close that gap because it is unprotected. The reason we cast this so early is it is attack speed buff 10%. So we're gonna go through our list of movement skills that are protected in pre-awaken that you want to chain. First up, we have Piercing Tornado. Next up, we have Haladiate Assault. We have the Rabam skill that is Sand Tornado. And we have, if you use Absolute Purge and press forward during the startup animation, you will get a dash forward out of it before it releases. It is unprotected during the startup and casting, so it's best for just moving, closing gaps, or attacking unsuspecting enemies. Not great for once you're already in combat. You probably could get caught. Up next, we have Silent Breach, which if you dash or during a lot of skills, you would tap your Silent Breach button. I prefer to do it out of a dash, so it'll look like this. You want to tap it. If you hold it, you will go into a different skill. Your next movement in Awakening is going to be Sin Splitter. And if you chain all three together, you will get this combo. I love following Silent Breach with Sin Splitter because it makes the gap at the end of Silent Breach very small. Tend not to get caught out of that, even in the thick of a fight. Your biggest movement skill that you have, Paradise Surge. So if we chain those together, it will look like that. So now we combine that with our pre-awakened movement. And you can see we cover quite a bit of ground. Okay, so this is for beginner or a more advanced combo, it doesn't matter. You want to get your buffs up before you enter combat, and if you can drop out of combat just long enough to rebuff, it's always good to do. And what I like to do is to go from Crown Kick, which is crit hit rate up, into Piercing Fang, which is AP up, into Inquisition, which is accuracy up, which is very important because hash hurts for accuracy. You will notice if this is not activated. So what that's gonna look like is, now we're buffed, like self-buffed. You don't have to hit anyone with these to get the buffs from it. Whenever we're starting a combo, let's say we know our opponents are up ahead, I'll do my buffs and then get my tornadoes up. Now we're gonna talk about your catches, CCs. One of the best CCs in the hash kit is going to be Piercing Tornado. It is a protected float with movement forward or in multiple directions. It's kind of hard to aim or guide, but you can somewhat curve it. Sand Slicer also has a CC, but it is unprotected, so I tend to try not to land in harm's way when I'm using it. So if someone is far enough away, I might go straight at them with it and then go into Piercing Tornado. But if I am close to someone, like say they're where that rock is, I'll actually shoot off to the side and then head towards them. You can do this in multiple directions. Up next we have the second most useful CC, maybe the most useful CC. It's Silent Breach, which is one of the movement skills I just talked about. Has a float right there at the end. Now, depending upon how far you are from someone, it will stop being protected as soon as you make contact. So if they are right here, you will not be protected during the skill. Whereas if you're closing a larger distance, it will have super armor up until you contact them. And then I'm always following that up. I can't stress this enough. Follow that up with Sin Splitter. Closing that gap is so important. After that, we have probably third most important CC, depending upon what core skill you choose. Unless you're in a 1v1, then it doesn't matter. If you've already knocked them on the ground, you are completely safe, regardless of if it's protected or not, to go into Doom Slash. It's a knockdown, longest CC in the game. You can see I have super armor because I use my core skill on it, but we'll talk about your best core skill options in a little bit. So next up we have the Awakening Grab, which is left trigger X. Anytime you're using the grab, it is optimal to do a left dash first. The reason that matters, you'll see when I dash to the left, my dual blade ends up in my left hand. He does the grab with the right hand, and so the animation actually is a little bit quicker because it doesn't have him swapping hands before he goes into the grab. So I'll always left dash into the grab. After that we have Collapse. It is a float. There's ways to shorten that animation, and I'll get into that during the combos. Now for slightly less used CCs, we have the Absolute Purge. Has a float on it, has good range on it. It can be great for if you're sneaking up behind a large group. Say you do your long dashes to get behind them, they haven't turned around, you might be safe to get that off. One of the best ways to do that is to Sand Slice, and then hold your Purge as you press forward while you're in Sand Slice, so it'll get it out pretty quick. Up next we have Owl's Dominion, and this is going to be the same button input as Silent Breach, but in Pre-Awaken after certain skills. The example I'll use here is after you're blocking, if you tap your button, it will do Owl's Dominion. Has a float. We have Sand Divider, it's a float. It also has an accuracy buff on it. I'd say the skill is better used just as a buff before you enter combat, but if you absolutely need a second CC and your awakened skills are on cooldown, I would follow this up with the Dominion skill, and you're guaranteed to get that second CC off. We also have Halati Throw, which is a stiff. So it's good for a little bit of range, but it is unprotected. Not really much you can do to cancel the animation to make it any shorter. So you can get melee characters, someone you don't have to worry about CCing you from range, but if they're a range class, I would not recommend using it. One thing about that is whenever you cast that out, you want to make sure you release the button, or else it will follow it with an unprotected gap close. I'll show you what that looks like. Great for gap closing if the stiff lands, but what I'd recommend is there's two ways to input that. One is to hold the button from the throw, but as you can see, I threw it, I didn't hold the button, now I press the X button, which is the stock input, and you can actually activate that gap close after you're sure that they're stiffened. I wouldn't recommend doing that unless you know they're stiffed. Up next we have Hourglass of Death. I'll show you what that looks like. It is a gap close in the same way that the last skill was, but it has protection all the way up until you land. So while it's charging frontal guard, then an iframe until you hit the ground. That has a bound on it. Pretty quick CC. Not the best CC, but it is great for gap closing to an enemy that's looking ripe for the picking. Next up, we're gonna talk about how to close your unprotected gaps as quick as possible, and good damage fillers for once you make those catches, depending upon what catch you get them with, will kind of depend upon what skills you want to go into after. So let's say I go with the Piercing Tornado. Right after Piercing Tornado, you see the protection drops off. You want to use Ridge Reaver. Ridge Reaver has a slow wind-up animation, but that is completely canceled out after you do it, if you do it after certain skills, such as Piercing Tornado. Straight into it. It also has a down smash on it and a crit hit rate up, so it's great to do early in the combo, or as a buff skill. Even if the CC fails, I like to use that a lot while I turn around and see if they're on the ground. And you can also do it with a quick cast after Halati Assault. You can do it after the Owl's Dominion. And you can do it after Sand Divider. I believe you can do it after Descent as well. So that'll make the skill cast quicker and allow you to get back to whatever the next step of your combo is without getting caught. For Awakening, I'd already mentioned after you do your Silent Breach catch attempt, you want to go straight into Sin Splitter. Kind of make sure they're on the ground. If not, you can reposition, make another pass with Piercing, maybe do Purge after. Purge is really risky. It can backfire a lot. Or maybe go into Hourglass of Death, get close. You almost always want to dash out of your skills that end unprotected It'll minimize the amount of time you're spending unprotected. You have quite a few options for the core skills. I'm gonna start off showing what I'd recommend to beginners or people who are just new to Hash. You don't have to be like new to the game. And that's gonna be Serpent's Coil. It adds a knockdown to Hash's like hardest hitting skill. So a double CC combo for beginners that I would recommend, or not even just beginners. This works great in large scale. It works really good in cap node wars, even if you're not the most geared player, or if you are an extremely geared player and you don't have to do as much to finish people, then this is going to be a go-to combo. You're going to do your Silent Breach in, do your Sin Splitter, and then go straight into Serpent's Coil. Likewise, if you go the pre-awakened route and you get your catch with Piercing, you can go into this, side dash, and go into Serpent's Coil. Alright, so I'm going to show you my skill add-on recommendations for the beginner combo, where we take the Serpent's Coil core skill, and what I have here is Sin Splitter, attack speed and crit hit rate. I'm always hitting this in the combo early on, always after Silent Breach. And you want that crit hit rate up early. Also the attack speed, very important. And then you're going to follow that up with Serpent's Coil, so we've got the minus DP and crit hit damage. This is going to make Serpent's Coil really smack, going to debuff them. Silent Breach to catch, we have our accuracy up, evasion down. It's only a tier 1 skill add-on, but it's a 1% difference on the buff and debuff from a tier 2. Not a major deal. And I have obviously I have the slows on Ensnaring Sands. This is in every loadout, not just beginner. Same for Sin Splitter, honestly. And Retribution, this is a flex spot. You can put whatever. I think Retribution really helps for being defensive and getting health back. It already has HP back plus 50 every good hit, so we stack into that with some 10 more and put the DP up. This is really good in PvE and sometimes in PvP. Can kind of help you stay alive when you're getting wailed on. And then we have Descent. It's a tier 3, decent cooldown on the skill, so you can have this up pretty often. I like to put the dot in PvE. It helps you wear down tankier groups. And the attack speed 10%. This is just because it's max attack speed, which helps you just pump damage as fast as possible. And in PvP, that dot really helps combat people with the good fairy, and especially tankier people who have you might have a hard time wearing them down. It's really good to get this on them early. So I'll show you on this test dummy over here what that would look like, and you'll see all the buffs proc at the top of my screen next to the health bar, and the debuffs will show over theirs. So we're gonna dash in and go straight into the knockdown, go straight into the flow, and then go into ensnaring. And that is a extremely solid damage combo. I know I say it's for beginners, but I promise you it's very effective. If you're under geared but you have thumbs and you want to learn how to min-max your combos, I'd recommend going with the Dune Slash core skill. Dune Slash has a great DP shred, and the flow has an evasion shred. The flow is unprotected, so you want to cancel out of that as soon as you can once the damage lands with a dash, or in some cases, or in most cases for me, if I think I can manage it, I will cancel the Dune Slash flow animation by going into collapse, and then I will cancel the collapse animation by dashing. And the reason we do that is collapse by itself, pretty slow. But if we do the Dune Slash, then Dune Slash Flow, then collapse, then dash, you'll see exactly how fast it comes out. Very quick. Allows you to put some skill add-ons on the skill and proc them very quickly right after you get that second knock on them. Now another way to chain your CC attempts is when you go into Silent Breach, if you hold the button, you will go into Pre-Awaken and do Owl's Dominion, which you always want to close up immediately with Ridge Reaver. And that's going to look like this. So that's a double float attempt. If someone is going to resist one, they probably won't resist the other. It's really good for getting that guaranteed CC if they're already on the ground, or it's a good attempt at a CC, but you are unprotected until you go into Ridge Reaver. So kind of use that at your own risk. It can be really rewarding or it can be really punishing. But if you are using the Serpent's Coil core skill, this would be your combo. Now let's talk about the flows in Awakening, or the flow, I should say. We have Condemnation. The way Condemnation works is you tap right bumper, and at the end of, I think, Collapse, Ensnaring Sands, Serpent's Coil, Dune Slash, or Flow Dune Strike, you will go into Condemnation so long as it's not on cooldown. And what that looks like is, I'll show you with Dune Slash. You can go straight into it from here. I would not recommend that. It has a down smash on it and it will undo the knockdown of Dune. You can do it after the Dune Flow, which is a little bit better use of it. You can do it after Collapse, which is equally as good. You can do it after Serpent's Coil or during it. I like to do it right after. And you can do it from Ensnaring Sands. Now let's talk about Ensnaring Sands. This is one of the most potent skills in the Hash kit. It's got 30% slows across the board. That's attack, casting, and movement speed. It hits hard. It's got a 65% crit rate. And it's good for damage, but I would not recommend using it in a damage combo. I think it's best used to slow your targets or opponents who are either engaging with you or trying to get away. So if I dash in on someone, I'm not getting my CC, they're fast, I'm going straight into this to try and make them much easier to catch. Likewise, if I get them on the ground, I'm knocking them around, they're tanky, I'm doing all my damage that I possibly can do. If they're about to get up and get away, I'll go into this. So I showed you what I'd use for the basic beginner combo, simple double CC. Good damage if you have good AP or are in a capped node war. But I would never recommend going Inquisition for the core. I'd never recommend going Collapse. And rarely would I recommend going Sin Splitter. It's a good catch, but then after that, in order to continue a combo, you're gonna have to be unprotected. So that can be rough. I prefer Dune Slash so I can get the most debuffs on people with some protection right there in the middle. Get that minus 20 DP from Dune Slash, get the minus evasion from the Flow Dune Strike, and yeah, you just can't go wrong being able to use that in your kit. So maybe the more comfortable you get, this is what I'd recommend trying out. My go-to combo is I'm gonna go Silent Breach, Sin Splitter, Dune Flow, Collapse, Piercing Fang, which is our AP buff. You don't actually have to hit the person with it to get the AP buff, so if you did this before the combo, you don't need to hit it again. And then from that, I'll go straight into Serpent's Coil, and then I'll use the Condemnation Flow then, or I'll go into Ensnaring Sands and then use the Condemnation Flow. And what that'll look like is... and that's probably my favorite combo. It's got massive damage. I was fighting people with 259 AP, and if I ever asked, like, guess my AP, they'd all guess 281 and higher, all the way up to 295, and it's just because of how hard that it hits when you're able to cancel all those skills together in a combo. Whereas if you're just going in and doing the beginner's combo, you're not going to have all the debuffs and buffs that you can from proccing all your skill add-ons. The main reason I don't recommend to use Inquisition, Collapse, or Sin Splitter as the cores is Inquisition and Collapse only get a frontal guard, and frontal guards are not the greatest. They're great for certain opponents, but there's a lot of classes that can cast out skills while facing you in front of you that will hit you like with back attacks, and so in that moment frontal guard is not helpful. You'll end up getting caught a lot. I just prefer to use super armors. You will have to eat some damage, but with the frontal guard you'll have to eat some damage and get CC. Now let's talk about skill add-ons for my personal favorite combos. Alright, now we're going to look at the skill add-ons that I use when have it set up for like my optimized combo that I go through. And I'll walk y'all through that and kind of explain why. So after I go with the Silent Breach or a Grab, really any CC, I'm going to go into Sin Splitter, proc the attack speed, crit rate, go into Dune Slash. Usually follow that with Dune Slash Flow into Collapse. And then we have basically all the self buffs that we could hope for going into Serpent's Coil. Now Serpent's Coil is your hardest hitting skill. It's like the last thing you want to do if you're starting a combo off with this. If they're tanky, you're probably not going to kill them. You want to really buff yourself and debuff them before you go into your hard hitters. And that applies to every class. So the way I have this set up, I'll go do my buffs, put my tornadoes out, and then go through my Silent Breach attack combo. And that is like ideal. That is the best, most damage I've learned how to do on the hash. You could have 250 AP, you should be able to kill people with 380 DP or even more. It hits hard, especially with all the buffs from our skill add-ons. Now for Collapse, I like to put the extra human damage and down attack because it's just going to boost you that much more. If you're in Cap Node War, you don't need the human damage, you can use back attack. But I normally don't change it. I normally just leave it all the same. Your main flex here is Descent. Sometimes I'll use Crown Kick because it's also a tier 3, but it's unprotected. So it's kind of up to you. Now let's talk down smashes and resets. For the down smashes, we have Crown Kick. We have Inquisition. We have Condemnation, And we have Veracity, which is auto-activated at the end of Serpent's Coil. Another down smash is Ridge Reaver. So all of these are going to extend your combo without the cost of a CC. You're normally allowed 2 hard CCs against someone, and then their immunity to CCs will begin. So once you get someone on the ground, you can kind of put them through a chain of down smashes, which is RNG. You're not guaranteed to get the down smash, but I'll show you that here. On the ground we go. So that was like 4 or 5 down smashes in a row. And there's other combos that you can do and you can play with and work in the damage how you want. Just the best one that I found is the Silent Breach, Sin Splitter, Dune Slash, Dune Flow, Collapse, Serpent's Coil, Condemnation Flow, Ensnaring Sands. Doesn't hit much harder than that. One thing I will say is whenever you are making the attempt with Silent Breach and you go into Sin Splitter, the Sin Splitter, you want to kind of guide yourself to wherever you land, you can go into Dune Slash without having to reposition. Because if I just go straight, I'll be too far. That Dune Slash does not hit. So a lot of times I will try and curl it and leave myself a little closer. And now we have no problem keeping them in range. Now as far as the 100% Black Spirit Rage goes, I like to leave Paradise Surge as an option. I leave it on. Sometimes I activate it while I'm trying to get away, and then it goes into the 100% animation, which is kind of slow, and that sucks, but it is great for engaging a ball, like in Node War and a GVG. Say they're that far away. I'm gonna buff up, activate my Surge, and it's got a knockdown on it. So that gives me time to go into a second knockdown and just mega damage on them. So I definitely recommend using that one. I think Quicksand is the other option for the 100%, and I'm just not a fan. You're gonna end up dead. Too much time spent unprotected, standing in one spot. But yeah, I want to thank everybody for watching. I'm hoping you were able to pick something up. If I realize I missed anything or left anything out, I'll probably make a follow-up video. If you have any comments, please comment down below. Ask questions, tell me where I'm wrong, whatever it is. But yeah, I hope this helped, and I stream on Twitch. I'm sure my link is down in the corner. Sensei Dake, and yeah, come give me a follow, come chat, and I'll see y'all on there. Thanks for watching.